Hi, this is Ashley from helituning.com, and this is a new video looking at the Align T-Rex 600 programmable 3G flybarless system. This is the full upgrade kit for the T-Rex 600, which allows you to convert the model from a flybarred helicopter to a flybarless system, and it includes the flybarless rotor head and the mixers that go with that, and the flybarless sensor, which is a 3-axis sensor, and the control box for doing the setup and control of that 3 gyro sensor. Okay, so I've just opened the box here, and I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what you get inside the box with this system. As you can see, you get a small manual, and this takes you through the setup, or the build up of the head, as well as information on how to do the servo control horns, and then detailed instructions on how to set up your flybarless system. And as this is a 3-axis system, it also goes on to explain how to do the setup for the gyro for the tail, not just for the elevator and aileron for the flybarless system. So you've got all your details in there, and there's 22 pages worth of information here. Now it is very worthwhile taking a look at the back of the manual, which is pages 21 and 22, which have got troubleshooting and some Q&A stuff on there. And actually some of the problems you're likely to come across are answered in the Q&A section, and it's worthwhile just having a scan through that and having a read before you go into setting up the 3-axis sensor and your flybarless head, because some of the questions you're going to hit are actually answered in that Q&A section. Okay, putting that to one side, you've then got the components of your head system. So first and foremost, you've got the head here and the blade grips. You've got the the control horns or arms which bolt onto the blade grips for your blades. So your rod from your swash plate up to your blade goes onto this here. You've got servo horns in here as well. Now these will only fit Align servos or Futaba servos. They're designed for those. So if you've got JR servos, you'll need to use different ones to these. You've got the mixer arms effectively, which allow the input to come from the swash plate up to the control system on the head. And this is like a flybar locking system effectively. It controls the phasing of the swash plate to keep the swash plate in phase with the rotor head. You've also got this little attachment here. What this does is it bolts onto the top of the head, and it allows you to put a flybar through it so that you can use an ordinary pitch gauge to sight down to your flybar, which is attached to the top of the head block, and then that allows you to set your pitch range by sighting against a flybar that you've put through this. And then when you've done that, you just take it off, and that's that job done. You've also got some linkages in here, which these are your linkages for setting up your head effectively, and these are quite chunky linkages as well. These aren't your normal Align links. Some of these are quite chunky to take the extra loadings they're going to have on them from working on a flybarless head. Then over here we've got our sensor. So this is the 3-axis sensor, and then next to it here we have the control box, which is for doing your setup for your 3-axis sensor. And then the last thing that you see here, and you can only see a bit of it because it's actually underneath here, this is a head stopper, and you actually have to take the components out of the box to see that, which is what I'll do next. Okay, so I've now got everything out of the box, and I'm just going to give you an overview of this now that I've removed it from the box so you can see the parts properly. So this is the rotor head, and as you can see, this one is a silver one, but you can get this in black, and I think they also do the kind of gunmetal green colour version of it as well. but this is the main rotor head. It comes pre-built, and I would very much recommend taking this apart, making sure that the bearings are installed correctly, greasing the thrust races and the dampers, and just making sure that everything is, you know, all good with your pre-assembled head. In fact, you know, make it so it's not pre-assembled, make it so that you assembled it. Okay, so that's the first part. The next thing is what the instructions refer to, I'm just going to check the terminology here, as the mixing base assembly. I'll just try and get a tighter shot on this. Okay, there we go. So this is the mixing base assembly. This will be installed onto your main shaft, and the way this works is the point of it is to keep the upper ring of the swash plate in phase with the rotor head. So this actually locks onto the shaft at a set height and spins with the shaft, and these downlinks connect to the upper swash plate ring, and they keep the upper swash plate basically in phase with your rotor head, so that when you make your adjustments to your pitch or your cyclic, they're happening in phase with the rotor head. So that's what this part is for. And you can see, you know, it's kind of it works on the basis that it clamps onto the mast. So when you do up this screw here, it's going to squash that piece there and grip that onto the mast to hold it in place. Next we have these little guys. I spoke about these earlier. These basically go onto the blade grip. So these are the blade grip arms. So this would install onto here, like so. And that's your control for the blade grip. And the same the other side. Also provided that you couldn't see are new push rod links to go from the upper swash plate up to the blade grip, and obviously your ball links and stuff that I showed you earlier to go with those. You get 3 servo discs with 2 holes in them, and you can use the inner or the outer hole, and there are recommendations in the manual for which holes you should use depending on how you want your flybarless system to respond. And as I said earlier, these will only fit Futaba or Align servos. You have this little fella here. Now this is the thing that you can bolt onto the top of the rotor head. So if you look at the top of the rotor head, there's a place where that can bolt onto, so that will go on the top there, and then you can pass a fly bar through that and then use that to sight down your blade with a standard pitch gauge. So it's just for setting your pitch range, and then when you've done that you take it off. Something you couldn't see, you can only see this bit of it when it's in the box, but a head stopper for the rotor head. And then we get on to the electronics. So you've got the 3-axis gyro, as you can see, very small, very compact, with a single plug in the side. I'll just put that there for the moment. You also have the control box, and I don't know if I can get this to focus. There we go. You can see there are 5 lights on there and 2 dials. Actually there's 6 lights, including this top one. 5 status lights and that 6th light there. 2 dials which you can adjust with a small screwdriver, and a single button for going through your setup. And again, this has a plug on it as well, similar to the other unit, and there is in the kit 2 cables which allow you to connect the 2 units together. There's a longer one, which is that one, and a shorter one, and which one you use really depends on how long a run of wire you require between the control blocks and your sensor. If these two are very, very close together, you can use the much shorter wire. If they're further apart, you can use the longer wire. And also with it, you get little pads which allow you to mount your sensor onto your machine. And then in the control box itself, you obviously have your connectors for connecting up your various servos and switches and that kind of stuff, and there are also ports here for plugging servos into it. So basically this set of controls would go into the receiver, and then out of your control box you have, well, into your control box I should say, you have your servos plugging in. So the servos plug into this, and then this plugs into your receiver. So effectively this is between the receiver and your servos, which allows this to take the signals from the radio and pass them on to the servo, but of course it does its thing as a flybarless system along the way. Just a little bit more detail about the control box here. What you'll notice is that the top wire here has 3 plugs on it, and that's because these are for the cyclic servos, and then the bottom one here has 2 plugs on it, and you'll notice that one of these just has a single wire in it, and this is basically the gyro gain control and the rudder servo plug. So the top of the unit is for cyclic servos, bottom of the unit for your tail servo, and your gain for the tail servo. Okay, so that's the overview of the flybarless system, and I hope it's been useful.